Robin Williams received a pass from the home to be with us this evening. He has a new movie coming out June 22nd, which he co-stars with Walter Matthau. It's called The Survivors. He has a new comedy album out called The...
They say, never meet your heroes. But Johnny Carson discovered the opposite. Behind the bright lights of television and the roar of applause, he found moments of kindness so genuine, they changed the way he thought about fame itself. He didn't just interview celebrities. He witnessed them at their most human. Some used their stardom not just to entertain, but to heal, leaving an impression on Carson that lasted long after the cameras stopped rolling. One of those figures was Jimmy Stewart, the tall, soft-spoken actor who embodied American decency. Known for his roles in It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Stewart carried himself with the humility of the everyman he so often portrayed. His character had been forged not just on Hollywood soundstages, but in the skies of World War II, where he served as a bomber pilot and earned the Distinguished Flying Cross. The war left him with invisible scars, nightmares of falling planes, hearing loss from roaring engines, and what today we'd call PTSD. Yet those wounds deepened his empathy. When Stewart appeared on Carson's show, he wasn't promoting himself. He was listening, asking questions of the crew, arriving early to learn names and staying late to sign autographs for their children. One night, he brought a handwritten poem about his late dog, Bo. His tender reading left Carson visibly emotional, forgetting for a moment that he was on television and simply reacting as a friend. Stewart's compassion stretched far beyond the studio. Christmas cards, personal notes, even financial help for crew families' education funds. Veterans in hospitals also knew his quiet presence. To Carson, Stewart was proof that kindness wasn't performance. It was who he truly was. Bette Midler brought a different kind of warmth. On screen, she was bold, funny, and electric. But Carson cherished her for the way she lit up every corner of the studio. She came from humble beginnings in Hawaii, working odd jobs to help her struggling family, and she never forgot what it meant to work behind the scenes. She founded projects to restore urban spaces, using her success to give back. When she visited Carson, she didn't just charm the audience. She hugged assistants, brought homemade food for the band, and remembered details about staff families. Once, she even flew out a crew member's child for specialized medical care, paying every expense without publicity. Her farewell performance for Carson in 1992 became one of television's most emotional moments, when she sang directly to him and reduced the unshakable host to tears. For Carson, that wasn't just a performance, it was love expressed through song. Judy Garland also left a mark. By the time she appeared on Carson's show, audiences saw the legendary star of The Wizard of Oz. But Carson saw something deeper, a survivor. Forced into pills and overwork as a child at MGM, Garland carried heavy burdens of addiction and exploitation. Yet she still found ways to care for others. She gave tickets to fans who couldn't afford them, paid for their music lessons, and supported civil rights, even marching with Martin Luther King Jr. On Carson's stage, she revealed her vulnerability, talking openly about struggles while still offering encouragement to others. Johnny extended her segment, letting her sing more, simply because he knew the audience needed to feel what she brought. Later, when she passed away so young, Carson devoted a tribute to her resilience. Privately, he often rewatched her appearances as reminders that even in pain, one could still inspire. Lucille Ball was another force. Known as the Queen of Comedy, she was also a pioneer who built her own studio and opened doors for women in entertainment. Carson admired her laughter, but what impressed him more was her generosity off-screen. She had grown up poor after losing her father, and that experience made her fiercely protective of others. She quietly paid medical bills for crew members, funded college scholarships, and even bought a home for a janitor who had lost his. During a time when women in business faced enormous skepticism, she stood tall, using her power to greenlight projects others dismissed, like Star Trek. Her support extended into political and social realms as well, including quietly helping entertainers who had been blacklisted during the Red Scare. Whenever she sat on Carson's couch, the audience saw a comedian, but Johnny saw someone who used her influence to lift others. Frank Sinatra, known to the world as the chairman of the board, showed Carson a side few saw. His reputation alternated between charming crooner and tough guy. But in private, Sinatra gave generously, often anonymously. He paid medical bills, supported families, and refused to perform at segregated venues, even at the cost of big contracts. On The Tonight Show, when he spoke of friends or injustices, his vulnerability slipped through. Crew members remembered his tenderness backstage, whether checking in on a makeup artist's sick mother or encouraging young singers. Carson recognized that beneath the swagger was a man with a heart as powerful as his voice, though Sinatra would never admit it himself. Sammy Davis Jr. dazzled as a singer, dancer, and actor, but Carson admired his perseverance. Born into vaudeville, Davis never had a normal childhood, and he endured relentless racism throughout his career. Losing an eye in a car accident at just 29 could have ended everything, but he returned stronger, finding solace in Judaism and using his fame to fight segregation. He marched for civil rights, performed benefits for free, and refused to bend in the face of threats. On The Tonight Show, Davis didn't just entertain, he revealed his humanity. Staff remembered his kindness, from generous tips to paying for a janitor's daughter's wedding. Carson saw him as living proof that pain could be transformed into compassion. Bob Hope entertained millions with his comedy, but his true devotion was to the troops. For decades, he performed in war zones, often at personal risk, never taking payment, traveling millions of miles just to bring laughter to soldiers. What Carson saw was not a comedian chasing applause, but a man who genuinely loved those he entertained. Hope would write letters to soldiers' families, send Christmas cards, and fund scholarships for children of the fallen. Offstage, he sometimes wept from the weight of what he witnessed, but he always returned to give more. To Carson, Hope embodied service through laughter. Dean Martin seemed the epitome of cool, but Carson knew the shy, sensitive man behind the swagger. Martin's drunk persona was mostly an act, apple juice in his glass, not whiskey. The truth was, he battled stage fright and introversion. Yet he devoted himself to his children and to quietly supporting youth programs. The loss of his son in a tragic plane crash broke him, but Martin used his grief to comfort others, visiting families who'd suffered similar losses and creating scholarships in his son's name. Carson admired how Martin showed that real coolness came from the courage to be vulnerable. Carol Burnett, the queen of sketch comedy, carried her own scars. Raised by an alcoholic family in near poverty, she found salvation in humor and the generosity of a stranger who helped fund her start in New York. She never forgot that act of kindness, and throughout her career she gave back, funding scholarships, helping families with addiction struggles, and speaking openly about her own hardships, including her daughter's battle with dependency. Some used their stardom not just to entertain but to heal, leaving an impression on Carson that lasted long after the cameras stopped rolling. One of those figures was Jimmy Stewart, the tall, soft-spoken actor who embodied American decency. Known for his roles in It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Stewart carried himself with the humility of the everyman he so often portrayed. His character had been forged not just on Hollywood sound stages, but in the skies of World War II, where he served as a bomber pilot and earned the Distinguished Flying Cross. The war left him with invisible scars,